Hi guys, I'm going to be doing Conor McGregor's chart today. I've been meaning to do his chart for a while now. I really respect him as a fighter. I think he's really talented. There's a lot coming up for him really. I mean, he's just become a father. He's got his own whiskey brand now, and obviously he's fighting Khabib in October as well. In his chart as well, he's got a lot of really close aspects, so I'll just be talking about these and obviously the house placements and signs. So his chart ruler is actually Venus, you know, Taurus being the ascendant, so Venus in the first house as well. He'll very much identify with this Venusian energy. He's very aware that he comes across very charming and, you know, a good talker at being in Gemini as well. His chart depositor is actually the Moon and Mars is in its own home sign of Aries. So the process of the chart depositor, obviously, so you start from the chart ruler, Venus, and then it's in Gemini, and then you look to the ruler of Gemini, which is Mercury. Mercury's in Cancer. The ruler of Cancer is the Moon's in Cancer and its home sign, so it stops there. And the same goes back to Aries there with the Mars in Aries. So everything the Moon and Cancer archetype represents will be very sort of important in his life. The Moon in Cancer sort of represents the mother, nurturing, family, his roots, upbringing, parenthood. It's all about being vulnerable and security and comfort. There's a few similarities with Cancer and Taurus. His rising, a lot to do with nurturing and security. Those two share, well, they're also sextiling by signs. I think he strives to have those sort of securities and comforts because of those two archetypes prominent in his chart. So the Moon's also very quite traditional in a way, the opposite sign being Capricorn, it's cardinal, so it shares this as well. He's kept the same team behind him, you know, that was there when he was first started out. So same coaches, same training partners, all of that. He's very loyal, I think, and I think he really respects loyalty, which is very much Taurus. It's almost like his team is like a family. Again, that's coming back to the Cancer archetype. He also goes to support his other teammates when they fight in their corner as well, so that's also very loyal. His Mars, it's in its home sign Aries, like I was saying before. This is a very important archetype when talking about him because obviously Aries and Mars is the god of war, also fighting, combat, you know, energy, aggression, assertion, passion. Mars isn't exactly exalted in Aries, it's actually exalted in Capricorn, earth sign. So in Aries it's comfortable there, it's familiar, but it's not the best expression of it. In a way, Aries doesn't really like to back down from a fight. If anything, they can kind of encourage it, or at the very least, you know, enjoy it. I see this sort of archetype being very fitting as his chart depositor because obviously he is good at fighting, he likes to fight. I think there's a part of him, you know, is very passionate about it, and it's also a very good outlet for his energy. Mars in Aries doesn't really have an outlet, some sort of sport or some sort of way to channel all this energy, and aggression and frustration in a way it can come out as. They can sort of become very aggressive or argumentative and even just get a bit bored if they don't have any sort of competition or challenge. So he's got Taurus rising, and the Ascendant rules our physical bodies, our mannerisms, our social and sort of superficial interactions, as well as what we identify with. Taurus can mean a strong body and strong composition. Taurus is the bull, and Taurus rules the throat. Taurus risings can often have sort of strong necks and upper backs. Also, being what we identify with the rising, for him it can be maybe sort of being relaxed, comfortable, content, carefree, maybe even an optimistic person with Jupiter and Venus there in the first house as well. This is a good rising for him to have. It kind of grounds him a little bit with all this fire and water in his chart. It's very passionate, so with the Taurus rising it can keep him steady and grounded. Also make him a bit more measured and sort of present and appreciative. So our Jupiter sign, what house it's in and the aspects can kind of indicate how we're lucky or how we have good fortune. For him in Taurus, his physical strength, all these Taurian traits, when he sort of learns and develops these more, I think that's where his sort of fortune comes from, and his luck and his abundance. Also to note, his Jupiter sextiling Mars, Mars, the planet we just talked about, so representing his fighting, so that makes a lot of sense as well. So Taurus is ruled by Venus, which is also our talents and how we earn our money and our wealth, and on his ascendant there, connecting with Jupiter, which is very expansive and potentially sort of flamboyant. We can see this as Conor sort of displaying his wealth in a way. Venus is also the planet of love and beauty and fine things, which is also in his first house. This can give him sort of a lot of charm, and for others to see him as attractive and often they have sort of well-proportioned bodies and facial features as well. Another way to describe Taurus as well can be very physical and steady and tenacious and practical. Jupiter is also what environment we learn best. So is Mercury as well. It's also how we learn. So Mercury is in the house of Taurus for him. So, you know, I think he'll learn best when he has a bit of a routine and he can sort of continually work hard at something over time for a long-term goal, which I think he has done quite well. You know, I think you need a lot of patience and determination to be able to do that kind of profession. So with the Ascendant, how we come across will be first this sign of the Ascendant, any close planets to the Ascendant, but it comes in succession from the Ascendant towards the second house. So first for him it'll be Taurus, and then Jupiter, and then Venus, which is in Gemini, in that sort of way. That's how he'll come across. So Jupiter being in the first house, I mean, it's just a big personality. Jupiter expands anything it touches. So his showiness and loud and proud sort of personality is what is really projected into the public. And when he meets people as well, it's very enthusiastic and jovial. Jupiter close to the MC or the Ascendant will really sort of be known for these traits as well, and may have sort of big exaggerated laughs or other mannerisms in a good way, you know, makes other people laugh and feel good. He's got two of the most benefic planets in the first house of the self and the identity, and also the physical body and sort of social mask, so I can see him being obviously very well liked. Jupiter is also actually making an inconjunct to Saturn and Uranus, so if he's not really careful he can kind of maybe be a little bit too much about the future or the big picture and need to slow down and maybe be a little bit more considerate. Uranus and Jupiter is sort of an awkward relationship. It can be very quite reckless energy. Along with his fearless sort of Mars and Aries, it could sort of be maybe a recipe for trouble if he isn't careful. On a more positive note, he can be a very inquisitive and mind-expanding sort of ideas and also experiences. Just very open-minded and sort of needs freedom and space to express his identity, the first house. I can sort of picture if anyone kind of tells him what to do or how to be, especially like maybe a certain persona for the camera or something like that, or to be for his image, I think he might want to rebel a little bit against that, you know, especially with that Uranus. And he's got Venus and Gemini there, and also in the first house. Venus and Gemini is very witty, funny, good with words, likes to make lots of jokes and, you know, have fun. Gemini are sort of like the social butterflies, I like to say. So he connects and relates to people, which is the Venus sign, through sort of stimulating conversations and playful interactions. He can also be very mischievous and clever. Mercury is also known as a trickster. Geminis are always really well connected, and you know, they know lots of people and they sort of have all their fingers in all the pies, so to speak. Venus in the first, who will come across as very charming and gracious and generous and love of fine things. Again, I think this is why he likes to wear like nice suits and look good, you know, he makes a real point of that. It's not really glamorous though, like a Leo, or mismatched like a Gemini. It's very stylish and simple and elegant, which is very much Venus. You know, that's how he likes to dress. Venus is also making an exact square to his North Node and South Node. Venus is all about relationships. I think he'll have to learn a lot about his relationships with other people, friends, family, his partner, to, you know, evolve and grow and to use his personality in the best way possible. I think he's also here to learn in this life, you know, about the Gemini and Mercurial energy, which is all about gathering information and exchanging information with other people. It rules the third house of education. It might be beneficial for people with Mercury connecting to the nodes to learn many skill sets or sort of continuous study in their lives. Mercury also rules the hands. It's about craft as well. It rules the hands and the mouth, the motor cortex and the brain. So about, you know, using your words and manual skills as well to learn things and develop. So the higher form of Gemini is, you know, storytelling but without gossiping. It's funny, you know, him being Irish, because they're the best storytellers. Also, they're good at jokes but not, you know, using that at someone's expense. Also to be very light-hearted and friendly but not superficial. Having connections with lots of different people without, you know, cheating or lying or anything like that. And also about being a good communicator without, you know, twisting the words or lying again. Also sort of instability and fickleness can be, I think, maybe detrimental to his growth as well. So he's actually got a T-square in his chart here with Mercury, Chiron, Saturn, Uranus and Mars and Ceres there. This is a great sort of configuration here for drive, indicating that he's going to be achieving something great in his life. Squares and oppositions, they give great focus and attention to these areas of our lives to help us grow and to really develop these parts of ourselves so we can become even better. So Uranus conjunct Saturn in the 8th house there is a bit of a tricky one as well. They're opposite kind of energies. It could be to do with maybe revolutionizing something psychologically or with his unique way of thinking, the 8th house as well. It's in Sagittarius as well, maybe a foreign perspective or philosophy on life or a way of being, which I think he kind of does give to people. With Mercury involved as well, I think it will be him communicating this, you know, it's opposite Mercury. He's really using his words to convey this sort of new message or new way of being and thinking. He can maybe even draw on his past wounds and hurt and the grind that he had to go through to get to where he is now. Chiron's also conjunct Mercury there. Chiron's sort of our past wounds and what sort of is hurtful or difficult for us early in life, and learning how to sort of not fully heal that but learn about it so we can then become wiser. You can sort of hear that bit of pain in a way about his past when he talks about it, you know, if you listen carefully, it is in the way he speaks. He has been through a lot sort of growing up, and I think this is what has kind of flavoured his communication style and how he comes across with that Chiron conjunct Mercury. So his Mercury is in Cancer, Mercury again being the planet of communication, how we think, how we speak, how we perceive situations. Although he's good with words and being witty and funny, he also kind of knows where people's emotional weak spots are, I think, or vulnerabilities are, and can exploit them quite well. That aspect can also maybe even be at the worst quite manipulative and sort of deeply hurt by criticism, also with the Sun in Cancer there, Sun and Moon in Cancer. Mercury in a water sign isn't always the most comprehensive or comfortable. Mercury is all about words and articulation and facts, but water signs are sort of more about feeling and sensing rather than intellectualizing it. So they can sort of find it hard to get their thoughts across. But with Conor, I think he still comes across quite well with his words, because the Venus in Gemini, again, it's in his first house. We can really see how he can communicate well. But with the Mercury, I think maybe it comes out in the way that his conversations and things that he can say can be quite emotionally loaded. It can maybe even indicate a very good memory as well. Cancer rules memory. This, I think, can even help him in his career, you know, the way that, you know, you need to strategize and think, and muscle memory, a good thing for his profession, so he can use it to his advantage. He has to be careful not to do that in the way that he communicates though, with Mercury, kind of about holding his tongue a little bit. Maybe he might need to learn to filter or think before he sort of says something. So we'll go to his Sun in Cancer. So it's in the 4th house as well. It's very family orientated. Becoming a dad would be a hugely fulfilling thing for him. Also with the conjunct the Moon there, it's a very nurturing personality. His childhood and the way he was raised, I think, would have a huge impact on how he lives his life and, you know, what views he still holds about family. He can have a lot of strong memories and feelings of how life was growing up for him. The Sun in Cancer can be very sentimental and private and maybe even a bit defensive, very caring and receptive and protective, extremely protective of the family. And also the self. Cancer is me, the physical body. He could even maybe have a thing with food as well, with all this Cancer and Taurian energy. I don't know what his diet is like, but I maybe can imagine if he's not in training, he would have a big love of food, or even for good quality food as well with Taurus. Maybe even a sweet tooth, or maybe just wholesome home-cooked meals. The Sun and Moon can also represent what sort of relationship your mother and father had as well. In this case, being conjunct in Cancer in the 4th, I think it's a very good relationship, very loving, very family orientated and focused, and probably where he gets his own strong family views from. The Sun's exalted in Aries, so I think it does quite well in Aries and other fire signs as well. It means a very sort of expressive and projective energy of the ego. And water and fire are quite dissimilar. So I find the Sun in any water signs to be a little bit of the opposite of what I described. So the Sun being in the 4th house, exactly conjunct the IC, again it's another exact degree. I think he really would shine amongst his family. This is where his vitality, his destiny, his vibrancy is. He may actually be quite, you know, private and insular and crave alone time, or just to be around family, and, you know, that's where he gets his energy from. With those planets in the first house and also his south node being in the fifth of fun and self-expression, I think he can, you know, be around friends and do the communicating and social aspect quite well. But I think his sun sign, where he gets his energy and what he really craves and needs, also his moon sign being in Cancer is more an introverted sign, and also the sun conjunct that I see it would be opposite the MC being his public persona and career. So yeah, needing to step away from that every now and then I think would be vital for him. So the sun being conjunct the moon in Cancer can even be prone to mood swings, ups and downs, you know, as the moon ebbs and flows. I really just can't say this enough, it's just so connected to family values. It's just very strong in his personality. So he's got a North Node there in Pisces in the 11th house. North Node in the 11th will sort of learn to integrate their purpose and energy towards other people and like-minded people rather than, you know, their sort of own wants and needs, which is more the 5th house. In Pisces as well, it's a lot to do with sort of sacrificing something for the audience, the collective groups. The 11th house also rules internet, social media, cities, being very unique and progressive. Pisces also being a water sign as well, it's about integrating more emotion and empathy for the collective. Then he's got Pluto in the 6th house in Scorpio. In the natal zodiac, 6th house is ruled by Virgo. So Virgo is about perfecting something, usually something physical, a craft. And Pluto is about obsession and precision and drive and energy. So I think he uses this for his career as well. The 6th house also being our work, what we do day to day. When he gets asked, you know, why is he so good at what he does, he just replies with, you know, it's not even talent, it's just obsession, I'm just obsessed with it. And that sounds very much like Pluto. Pluto can get obsessed with things and is very determined. In the 6th house of, you know, perfecting something, a skill or a physical ability, being a very earth and practical sign as well. You know, it's through a lot of repetition and precise and sort of detailed practice is how the 6th house works. So he is transforming, which is Pluto, his physical skills, which is the 6th house, and this is what he's meant to be doing because it's trining the North Node as well. Just quickly, I'll touch on the descendant there in Scorpio as well. Other people, unless they're sort of close to him, even himself might not really realise the side of him that can be very scorpionic, determined, destructive even, very intense and controlling, with the ruler being in the house of Virgo as well. He may project these traits onto other people as well. That's what we do with 7th house issues. So he might see other people as secretive, ruthless, mysterious, and guarded. I think this might be why he doesn't really like to have his relationship on show so much and why he wants to keep his life private. Also with the Sun and Moon there in the 4th house. The house of Scorpio is the 8th house, and Saturn and Uranus is there in a conjunction opposite Mercury. So again, using sort of manipulative or maybe harsh or shocking, you know, Uranus words and tactics, which is Mercury, to protect himself and the things he owns, which is 8th and 2nd house axis. So his Capricorn MC, the MC there is also what we kind of aspire to be in our public image. Capricorn is very stable and secure and sure of themselves, at least on the outside. But Capricorn also has to do with work, so he'll be known for his career, for his work, you know, which is fighting. Capricorn is also the businessman, and people may feel he's very sort of trustworthy and capable with business matters if he keeps that Mercury under control, I think, as Saturn is actually opposing that and squaring Mars. Capricorns really know how to get what they want. It has to be the boss and be the best. They're a cardinal energy as well, so they just go out and get it. It's opposing his Sun and Moon though in Cancer there, so his more inherent nature being is to be caring and, you know, about family. But his public image is sort of opposing that in Capricorn, so it's maybe even demanding him to be a bit more detached and about business and working hard. So he may feel a little bit of a conflict within himself with that. The best way I think to deal with that would be making sure, you know, he has his separate home life, work life, and being sort of fully present and attentive when he's in each of those modes. So his Mars is at 0 degrees Aries. 0 degrees or even 29 degrees is a very auspicious degree, and it's also in its home sign. Mars in Aries has a lot of energy. It's dynamic, courageous, very impatient, headstrong and independent. Anyone with a lot of Mars energy would be wise to do sports or where there's a battle or opposition almost, I think this is where they feel like they can thrive, and it's also a very positive use of this energy. Otherwise it can sort of turn into an energy where they're looking for a fight, or whether it be physical or verbal, and just sort of need a certain level of confrontation to deal with. It's squaring Saturn as well, so Saturn wants to be very much in control and Mars wants to win. Yeah, determine that as you will. Mars being in the 12th house is a little bit trickier though, I think, for him. I think it's another major factor for his work as well. The planet of drive and energy, and the house of sort of no limitations or boundaries. So it may feel like when he can access this energy and activate his Mars, he might feel like he would have sort of endless energy. Maybe even that unstoppable sort of feeling. So Mars is also square Mercury and Chiron. This can sort of taint his words a little bit, I think, like I spoke a little bit about before, and his conversations with people as well. So more maybe passion and anger than what he really intends. It's a square aspect, so it will need attention and working out to get the full potential out of it. It can be tricky. Aries mixed with Cancer energy can also be a bit, maybe even vindictive at the very worst, or at the least maybe emotionally sort of heated when communicating. It can also be the speed at which he speaks as well, because this is in the second house ruled by Gemini. Very quick, but yeah, very quick and clever with his banter, we know that for sure. Maybe he could come across as argumentative or assertive as well with Saturn opposite. I think it would depend on what mood he's in as well. Again, Mercury being in Cancer, Cancer's all about your mood, and it's also ruling his moon, so his emotions. It could even be that it just comes out when he is angry or defensive. Again, this is what is part of what makes him great. Actually, it's part of that T-square. I think he'll have to be careful not to become across as too harsh or have that sort of inflated ego due to his power in his chart and what he's sort of gained in life. Like anyone in a position of power or has that kind of money, you know, there's a risk of everything sort of going to the head. But you kind of have to learn to keep grounded and humble so it doesn't sort of turn into that type of energy or even sort of self-sabotage. It can be very tricky for anyone in that position, I think. But I think he does do well, and he's really learning about himself. He's still young, so you know his North Node really is only just starting to come into effect in a few years' time, I think. So there's a lot more learning for him to do about people and the collective and the public, and where he fits into that and how he shines, because the North Node's trining his Sun there as well, and who he is. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Leave a like or comment. See you soon.